Hello, and welcome back to the Bar Gym Reviews. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into one of the most interesting squat bars I think that are on the market that nobody's talking about, and that's the Bells of Steel Curved Squat Bar, aka the Buffalo Bar. So it's not your typical like safety squat bar. It's again kind of towards the Buffalo Bar, but you can also do a little bit more than squatting. So this is a serious cambered bar at a very affordable price tag, I think, for specialty bars. So full disclosure though on that, Bell Steel did send this out to me for free to check out. They did not give me a script. They didn't give me anything to say. They just said review it. So we're gonna keep it honest around here. So those things are not gonna affect my thoughts and my take on this thing. And you will find out there's things that I love and there's things that I don't like. So I'm gonna break it down the same way, whether they were paying me, not paying me, for free or not for free. So unfiltered, tested in the actual home gym. I have had this about a week or so. So we'll go through it. We'll go through the unboxing, specs, test lift, side by side comparison. I shouldn't say side by side, but a comparison to one of the top cambered bars in the market. So, make sure you're looking out for that. And then don't forget, there is going to be affiliate links related to this and other products that I've reviewed on the channel, from Bells of Steel, Rep, Yasuda, and Barbell Rescue and others. So make sure that you keep an eye out for that. So by the end of the video, though, I want you to hang on. There's going to be one make or break feature of this bar that I think is either going to have you purchasing this or saying, maybe I'll go with something else. So make sure you stick around to figure out what that make or break feature is. All right, so first of all, let's talk about how the bar arrived. So it did arrive via UPS delivery. There was a few delays in there, but obviously that is not Bells of Steel's fault. The packaging was solid. Bubble wrap, foam, plastic protection, no damage to the bar. The sleeves, collar, everything looks great. And I'll be honest with you, as you can see in the video and the time lapse that I showed you, the box was in pretty rough shape. So it was definitely beat up, externally. There's lots of rips and tears, some scrunching, some ripping on the box. But when it comes to the actual bar itself, the only thing I really need to do is kind of brush off some stuff. There's a little bit of dust and debris in there, which is pretty normal and expected if it's going to be in a box like that. It's not shipped in a tube like some other barbells that I've received in the past, probably because the 6.5-inch camber here. So unboxed really quickly. No real surprises there. All right, so let's talk about kind of first impressions here. So right away, the Bell Steel Buffalo bar stands out from the straight bar, not just because of the camber, but because of the actual modality of use. So squats. This bar does sit beautifully across my back, at least. The cambered curve kind of allows for a more natural arm position and comfortable grip that's better on the shoulders, and the load sits a little bit lower because of the camber, and it kind of keeps you upright. And honestly, it feels a little bit more comfortable than a traditional barbell on your back. Okay, at least compared to my Rogue Ohio Power Bar. When it comes to alternate uses, it's really not effective in any way for pulls because it tends to flip around. But I did experiment with bench pressing, so that was a little bit interesting. The deeper camber does create a longer range of motion, which kind of gives the pecs and the shoulders, which can be bad for some, a deeper stretch at the bottom of the lift. So that could be a good or bad thing. Again, like I said, so if you have shoulder issues, it's not a bar for benching. But if you actually want that extra stretch, then that could be a little bit better, especially if you're talking about hypertrophy over power. So that is definitely an interesting note to think about. One thing I will say, and I'm going to do a deeper dive into this later, but there was a little bit of a noticeable wobble when it comes front to back, or north to south when benching, I guess, one towards your face and then towards your waistline. So it's pretty subtle, but it does kind of engage some other muscles that you might not normally use, like stabilizer muscles. But I think there's some utility to that as well, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But first impressions, it's a squat bar. In on the product name, it's called the Bells of Steel Curved Squat Bar. That's what it's intended for. But I do think that there's some other applications. Like I said, benching I think is something that could be great because of the camber. All right, so let's run through the specs quickly here. So this is a standard weight. It's 20 kilograms, about 44 pounds. It does have Olympic sleeves with a pretty smooth rotation. And then the camber, or the curvature of the bar here, is about 6.5 inches, which we'll talk about, but is a little bit aggressive for some when it comes to buffalo bars. The total length and sleeves, they will fit most power racks. I do have mine currently sitting on my Rogue RM6, which has 49-inch upright spacing. Um, knurling, I'll give you a close-up on the knurling, although that's a little bit hard to see since it's black. Um, but this is where I think things get kind of interesting. Now, I pretty much exclusively have Rogue bars for knurling. I do have some rep products, attachments and stuff that don't. But the knurling on this curved squat bar seems really deep. It feels like there's fewer points per square inch compared to something like my Rogue Ohio Power Bar or my Rogue or the Rogue Ohio knurling that's on my lap pull down. So because of that spacing, the cuts, I say cuts, but the cut, that feels a little bit deeper into the skin. So almost chunkier, I guess, in a way, which gives it a really grippy feel without being too sharp. And I'll be honest with you, it does lock into your back really well right here. I will say one critique when we compare it to other barbells and camber barbells is usually this section of knurling in the middle is a little bit farther out. However, it costs money to knurl bar, so maybe that's why this is a great option since it's a little bit more in the budget range when it comes to buffalo bars. So when it comes to pressing, that's when I felt it a little bit more where I'm like, man, it does dig in just a little bit more than my Rogue Ohio Power Bar does. But not something that's a complete turnoff for me, but something that maybe, my wife and her delicate hands, she might not like pressing or maybe even squatting because of that. So just something to think about when we talk about knurling here. All right, so next let's talk about a practical detail when it comes to you in your home gym and how this sits on your rack. So because of the deeper camber, I will say that the bar has a tendency to kind of wobble a little bit, especially when there's no weight on there. And I reached out to some people in the community, some people I trust on YouTube and other content creators that have this bar, and some of them said that when the first iteration came out, that it did slide from side to side, so this way, that way, when loading plates. I have a Rogue RM6. I think that since it's a little bit wider, about 2 inches wider than most racks, at 49 inches, that I really don't have any stability issues here. So I'm not going to say that this isn't an issue for something like someone with a Rep PR 4000 or 5000 that has 47-inch upright spacing. But for me, I have had no issues. I load the bar or the plates on the end of the barbell, and it doesn't tend to slide off at all. I will say that just for fun, and I have just tested it, I did put on my Ghost Strong Roller J cups, and it does roll to one side, but it does stop. So I definitely wouldn't recommend using this on the Roller J cups at all. I would definitely use some standard J cups, or if you have camber blocks, that'd be great as well. Rogue does sell cambered blocks for their CB4. I'm not sure if the exact fit there, but it's got to be better than kind of just letting this rest on here. So, bottom line, if you have a narrow rack than 49 inches, I won't promise that it won't teeter from side to side a little bit more. I would definitely not use roller style J cups for this. So keep that in mind because that bar's camber, again, is a little bit exaggerated, which does tend to give the stability off a little bit. And since it's rounded or curving, it can have the tendency to slide off, kind of have that avalanche effect. You put, a 45 plate on one side, it might pull it that way. But I think since I'm imagining, for me at least, that since mine are spaced at that 49 inches instead of 47 inches, that it's got me just wide enough that it doesn't pull a lot. I think it also helps that I have 1 inch sandwich J cups, and that by design, there's a lot of UMHW plastic here, and I think that that aggressive knurling that's out here really does catch on that UMHW plastic. So I think that could also be a factor. So just something to think about. But if you have specifically a Rogue rack that's 49 inches and you have 1 inch sandwich J cups, I can pretty much guarantee you're not going to have any issues with it falling off to the side when loading plates. All right. So at the end of the day, this is my first cambered bar, a Buffalo style bar. But I didn't want to do some sort of comparison. And the only thing I could really come up with, maybe it's the Rogue fanboy here, but is the Rogue CB4. Because honestly, I think it's just one of the best known and overbuilt. I think it's just the top of the line. So I think the CB4 is a great comparison for that reason. So the CB4 does have a shallower camber, a little over 4 inches compared to 6.5 from Bells of Steels. That shallower angle on the Rogue does give it a little bit more of a traditional barbell feel as far as the balance goes. So the Bells of Steel version, on the other hand, it's a little bit more aggressive on the camber, a deeper curve, drops the weight just a little bit lower, maybe a little bit slightly forward when, bending a little bit more at the hip when you're squatting, which can change the feel for squats and benches or pressing movements. So while that Rogue CB4 bar may feel more refined, I would imagine, and balanced and just overbuilt at 60 pounds, for goodness sake, I think that Bells of Steel delivers a little bit of a more dynamic or dramatic variation that could be a good thing and honestly challenge you in ways and challenge you in your training that might be a plus. So I think this is important when it comes to Bells of Steel, that it's at a lower price point, okay, which makes it feel like a really solid value for everyone that wants to try out a Buffalo bar without spending top tier dollar like the CB4, which we're talking $520 plus dollars. You got to imagine that you're gonna have to probably buy the cambered blocks as well, and if you don't have roller J cups, you might have to buy those as well. But if we're talking about just that bar, $520, plus as it stands, doesn't have free shipping with it. That's a huge price tag to pay for one bar that's basically just dedicated to squat and then maybe do some pressing. So in that case, this is where I really like the Bells of Steel Buffalo bar because it falls in that sweet spot of price range. I think it lends its hand to be more available to more people because we're talking closer to the $300 range. So we're saving like $200 here. We still get a cambered barbell. And also another thing to think about when we're comparing these two is the CB4 is like 95, if I remember right. I'll throw the specs on there, I'm sure. But it's like 95 inches long compared to this being 84 inches long. So if you're tight on space, the CB4 is a space eater. So this is a little bit closer to a traditional barbell in length. And quite honestly, if you have like something like a rep safety squat bar, it's a little bit shorter than that. I'm sure I'll show some comparisons of that as well. So I think this fits the space a little bit better. It's a little bit more comfortable on price for a lot of us, and it does what it's intended to do, which is give us a little bit for those of us that have bad shoulders, a little bit more comfortability in the squat. It feels a little bit better on your back and on your shoulders, and it kind of curtails and curves itself closer to your body. And it really just gives us that, check that off the box of I have a curved cambered bar that's, changes, my lifting just a little bit. All right, so let's bring it back to the make or break design feature that I mentioned earlier. It's that slight north to south wobble, that back and forth instability when loading. I think it adds an unexpected challenge, especially during squats and even during benching. So at first, it might feel like a flaw, a no-go. I'm not going to buy it. but the more I used it, the more that I saw the value for training. So um, in the world of fitness, we're always trying to press different envelopes and do different things and add variation and add variability and add different reps and different training stimuluses. And I feel like this forces you to brace a little bit harder, focus a little bit more, and develop a little bit more control in stabilizing your muscles. So it might not be for everyone, but if you're trying to build better form and stability, it actually, I think, becomes a strength of this bar. So I think compared to other cambered bars, I think that north to south wobble, um, you know, is a little bit more pronounced because of the camber. And since the camber is so aggressive, it makes it a little bit unique in that way. So when you're squatting and, even with the pec stretch, when we're benching, but that benching element, that north to south wobble makes you engage those stabilizing muscles. And I think overall, if you're trying to become a better bencher or a better squatter, that could be something that might just push you that 1% higher when it comes to do like a max rep or max PR. Overall, if you don't want the bar to feel less stable, though, then maybe you might feel just a traditional squat bar, straight squat bar, or a power bar. Then maybe this isn't for you, right? But I think it is a make or break for some, because if you feel that wobble stimulus because of the camber being so aggressive, and that's just not comfortable to you, then that could be a deal breaker. But I think that it's a true hidden gem when it comes to this bar, because it forces you again to brace, really focus on those stabilizing muscles. So just want to make you aware, and I think it's honestly it's a love hate, right? I think you could either love that or you could hate that. So in the comments, let me know. Would you hate that instability, or would it be like, I don't get that with a traditional barbell, so that's going to add a little bit more muscle growth, and then it'll be that much easier when I do go for that max squat on a traditional barbell. All right, so let's wrap up this review, right? So the Bells of Steel curved squat bar, the Buffalo bar. If you're looking to add a specialty bar for your setup that challenges your lifts, adds variety to your chain, it's definitely one to consider, especially at the price point. Talking a little bit over $300. I think the last time I checked, it was about $310. And those prices do fluctuate. I have seen it like at 290 or at 300 as well. If you see one of those, just think of us here at the Bar Gym Reviews. I do have affiliate links. So if you'd like to pick up one of those, you can use one of the affiliate links, including the one that I have for the Buffalo Bar here. It just helps support the channel, honestly. It's what's going to keep us going, keep the lights on, all that good stuff here at the Bar Gym Reviews. And it doesn't cost you anything, right? So let me know in the comments, though, if there's ever a bar, or if there's a bar that you would like to use. Is this a bar that you might use? What's your favorite specialty bar? There's a lot of things that we can comment down there. So, just let me know. And then again, best way to support the channel, help the algorithm, boost the algorithm. You've heard all those things. You like, you subscribe, you hit the notification bell. That's just going to help us here, free to you. So if you like the in-depth reviews and you want to see more, make sure you do those things. And of course, I'm always looking for more things to review. So if there's any companies out there, by all means, send us something our way, and we're gonna give it an honest review, right? I don't want to sugarcoat anything. Okay, so there's obviously some great things here. Obviously, a few flaws or things that are deal breakers. Overall, though, I think it's a bar that I'm going to have sticking around my gym for a while. So, again, like, comment, subscribe, notification bell, all those good things. See you guys next time.